for the 1st Congressional District, Jim Hagedorn stops on by. Mr. Hagedorn, how are you doing today?
Paul, just fine. Thanks for having us. It's great to be here.
This is spectacular that you're here visiting Albert Lea today and talking with some local and civic leaders. So let's talk a little bit about 2018. It's going to be here before we know it, right?
Well, we're halfway there if you want to go from the last election to this one. Yeah, less than a year to go.
For those listeners out there, let them know a little bit about yourself.
Well, I was the candidate for Congress in the last race, the Republican on the ballot that almost beat Tim Walz. We had 49.6% of the vote in 2016. We kept going. Walz is out running for governor, so now the seat's open, and it's the best takeover opportunity in the country for the Republican Party. My background is I was born in Blue Earth, and that's where I live today. I always say one of your suburbs here in Albert Lea, Blue Earth, Minnesota. And I grew up on a farm over by Truman. My father, grandfather, great-grandfather were all southern Minnesota farmers. So that's a wonderful experience that I had there, being on a farm and so forth. And worked for a U.S. congressman, had some positions with the Treasury Department where I downsized the government, drained the swamp. And we've been running for the seat now twice in a row, 2014, 2016. And we're back in it. The day after the election, I said, we've got this. We're going to get this. And so we're doing just like John Klein and Newt Gingrich, going 3 in a row. So here we are.
Now, this year, 2018, it's going to be here before we know it. But right now, if we focus on the current for the city of Albert Lea, this area of Freeborn County, healthcare is a huge issue right now, rural healthcare. Mayo Clinic Health Systems announced back in June that services were going to be transitioned from Albert Lea over to Austin. And I know it's kind of a state-local issue, but at the same time, nationally, rural healthcare has to be up there with certain ticket items people are looking for answers.
Well, it is, and you're right, it is mostly a state and local issue here with the local hospital. I'd say overall, though, it's part of an even bigger issue. One of the reasons that I'm running for Congress is to be someone that will go to Washington, work on the Agriculture Committee to sustain agriculture and also sustain our rural way of life that we have here in southern Minnesota. And if you look everywhere, especially farmers are under pressure with sub $3 corn, high input cost, Obamacare costs for them. Our small rural communities are under pressure. Look at Blue Earth where I live. We just lost the Walmart. Over in Laverne, way on the west end of this district, they just lost 200 poultry jobs. Up in Waseca, they lost another 300 jobs. And then here you see the hospital under pressure, and we could lose the hospital. That happened in Fairmont. I can tell you it's a big deal. It really hurts towns. Something I don't want to see done. I sure hope that Mayo and the local people and others can get together and come to some sort of an outcome that will allow either the hospital to be purchased or some way we can continue this. And I know they're a private entity and they can do what they want, but I just hope that they come to some sort of conclusion that's good for all.
Tax cuts, that's been making a lot of news right now when it comes federally. A large tax cut is planned right now in the beginning stages between the House and Senate. What's your take currently on what is being proposed for those federal tax cuts?
Yeah, I think, if we're about 1 year into the Trump administration and what we've seen out there is a little bit of a bump in the economy. And some of that is because of the work that's been done by Republicans and others in Washington to streamline regulations, to make sure that we do better and allow businesses to thrive and people to have high-wage jobs. But there's this anticipation out there with business leaders, farmers, everybody, that Republicans are going to follow through on their big economic changes. And one of those that I've always supported and that they're working on now is tax reform. The tax code is very complicated. People are paying too much in taxes, in my estimation, hardworking people, especially middle-income folks. And the code does need to be simplified, flattened. We need to essentially do this. Transform it from where the bureaucrats, the politicians, and the interest groups in Washington tell people how to save, spend, invest their money, and give that power back to the people. And if we do that, via the tax code, by eliminating some of these deductions, lowering the rates, I think we're going to see the economy continue to expand. And if we get up into 3.5-4% annual growth in the economy, we're going to start driving up revenues, and it's going to be the best thing that we can do, not just to help people have more income, live better lives, but also then be able in a position to attack this debt and our deficit and try to drive that down.
Now, you mentioned agriculture. Freeborn County, 87% agriculturally based here county-wide. You mentioned, helping out the farmers. Are there things that you could do if you're on the agricultural committee to maybe increase exports to other countries and help out farmers?
Oh, absolutely. That's a big part of it. I mean, there are many aspects to being a representative here in southern Minnesota. that can help agriculture. And I think we need somebody like myself with a little bit of a farm background and a passion, appreciation for farming and agriculture and agribusiness, and that's what I want to do. I'm going to be on that committee. And when you look at the big policies in Washington, of course, you have the Farm Bill. You want to sustain agriculture. You want to have you want to have the programs that just make sense to keep us going. And then, of course, we have to look at other things. Regulations are really piling on farmers, driving up costs. And Obamacare, I said at Farm Fest last year, Obamacare is probably the biggest issue in agriculture, at least it was then. You had farmers spending $20,000, $30,000 a year for premiums. With a deductible so high, the underlying insurance was worthless. And when farmers are losing money or at the break-even point, that becomes a big line item in their budgets, and it really hurts. It puts pressure on the small communities, puts pressure on small businesses, and across the board. So those are the types of things in a big macro way that I'd like to do. Also, you need to expand those exports, because if we don't expand U.S. agriculture around the world, we're just going to have more and more production and lower costs. Can't have that. And then I think you just need somebody who's going to look out for the rural areas of this district. You know, Rochester's doing okay. There's a lot of money flooding in there. Mankato doing pretty good. A lot of money going there too. But our rural communities are under pressure, whether it's losing schools or hospitals or jobs. You know, it's under pressure. They need somebody at least that's going to advocate for us, and that would be something that I would make a priority.
Talking with Jim Hagedorn. He's running for the 1st Congressional District here in 2018, stopping by Kate Studios. Not only are you going to be in Albert Lea today, you're actually going to be coming back to Albert Lea on Monday next week for a congressional candidates debate right here in Albert Lea. Yeah, well, we're going to have a little forum about an hour before our 1st District meeting. It's going to be from 5 to 6 over at Wedgewood Cove Golf Club. The public's invited. Love to have you there. I always enjoy discussing the issues, debating the issues. We did that against Tim Walz 2 election cycles in a row, so I kind of miss him. I like the contrast with that liberal Democrat, but in this case, we're just going to talk positively about what we believe and what we stand for. And by and large, I think, what we're seeing out there, there's 7 Democrats running for this seat. And all 7 Democrats are running around. They want to resist the president. They want to replace the president. They want to take us back to the Obama policies that were failed and rebuked. People in this district didn't want big government things like Obamacare and these massive regulations like the Clean Power Plan and things like that. And it's I offer a contrast on the other side. I'm somebody that wants to be a conservative who will be part of the U.S. House and the Republican-led House, who will partner with the president to do the big things, to keep America safe by securing our borders and protecting us from Islamic extremists, to make sure that our economy is prosperous and people have high-wage jobs through tax reform, regulatory reform, budget reform, work for welfare, U.S. energy independence. Those are big issues, and I'd be for all those things. And then protecting our God-given rights, the right to life, the right to keep and bear arms, the right to religious freedom. That's what I stand for. That's why I want to go to Washington. That's why I want to represent the people here of southern Minnesota. On Sunday, there was a shooting that took place in Texas, and when we look at that, you're seeing increased calls right now for gun control and reform to gun control. What is your stance on that? Well, I'm a supporter and defender of the Second Amendment, and I believe that law-abiding Americans should have the right to keep and bear arms and protect themselves and to use firearms in a legal purpose, for legal purposes, as they see fit. I think we have enough laws on the books that, if implemented and properly executed, can help us avoid most of these problems, but some of it comes down to people. The person in Texas that walked into that church is probably of the most evil people that has ever walked this earth, and what he did was despicable, especially to people who were there just to worship God on a good Sunday morning. It was a terrible situation. But I don't think the answer is gun control, and I don't think the answer is more laws on the books. I think it's an application of the laws that we already have on the books. Talking with congressional candidate Jim Hagedorn right here on KATE. He is going to be stopping by Monday, November 13th in Albert Lea, Wedgewood Cove, 5 to 6 o'clock. A $5 Goodwill donation will be collected by the Freeborn Republican Party to offset costs for the event. And if you're going to be attending, ask to get there about 4:50-ish, as the event will begin at 5 o'clock and end at 6. If you've got questions, you can email them to Brian Hensley, brian.hensley@outlook.com if you can't make it. Mr. Hagedorn, what else would you like the listeners here on KATE in the Albert Lea, Freeborn County area to know about you?
Well, we're getting around the district. We love getting out and shaking hands. After that last race with Walls, we were so close. 61 votes in each of the 21 counties. If they'd flipped from Tim to Jim, we win. And we just kept going. And part of the reason we keep going is we get a lot of energy when we get out and shake hands at parades, county fairs. We did 50 parades, 21 county fairs, hundreds of stops. We're continuing to get out. And I just would reach out to people and say, if you have ideas for our campaign, if you have any encouragement, even the criticism, we'd love to hear it. We want to be doing our best now, so if and when elected, I can be the best representative for the people of southern Minnesota in the U.S. House.
You got a website and people want more information, would like to donate at all?
Website is jimhagedorn.org, and feel free to go on there and then send us an email or anything else. And this is the best Republican takeover opportunity in the country. We're working hard every day. We ask for people's support, and it's wonderful being with you, Paul. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much. Jim Hagedorn running for Congressional District 1 here on KATE. When we come back, take a look at that weather forecast.